Guys, welcome back. What is good? Welcome back to the Sdho 101. I can't believe that I've done over 100 of these, and I think we're going in a new direction now. It was the sound design hangout, and now I think we're going to be venturing into newer waters, although I guess you could say that we've been kind of doing that progressively more and more throughout a lot of the more recent SDHOs, if you've been watching. So I think the sound design hangout might be morphing into, I guess maybe its logical conclusion, the spiritual dimension hangout. So I can still use SDHO. But yeah, so I feel like there's a small group of people that watch all of these SDHOs. It's a hunch that I have. I think each SDHO usually gets about 50 views, and the majority of them come within the first 24 hours I upload them. And certainly the majority come within about 48 hours. So they all pretty much come right after I upload it, and then it sort of just drops off. Which, you know, in my assertions, I feel that it's because there are those of you that primarily watch YouTube for the most part, like I do. And whenever I turn on YouTube, I want to know, okay, who am I subscribed to? What are the new stuff that's up? And so I'm sure you guys are subscribed to me. A new video pops up, you see it, or you're alerted to it. And if you like watching these shows, if you like hanging out with me, you watch it. And so, as I've mentioned, I've been kind of going this way where I found myself, because even if you go back to any video that I've ever done, I mean, there's 100 plus now of the SDHOs, and then other videos I do, there's always like a spiritual element to it. And if you don't like the name spiritual or you don't resonate with it, that's completely fine. Don't worry about it. But, I guess you could say I'm trying to inspire, whether it's me doing the Ableton stuff, the art stuff, talking about, the spiritual dimension, consciousness, which is as much relevant on the planet today as I'm recording this in mid to late February. Last SDHO was mid to late January. And so now we're a month later into the future. And the future, that's another thing I want to talk about. We did a lot of talking about the future in the last SDHO, and how it's a good thing and to be excited about the future. And the future, it has a lot to do with technology, with AI, with consciousness, the collective consciousness of humanity, and how that is rising up, and how the frequency of the planet is rising up. And so we're rising into this, we're basically evolving, our consciousness is evolving, and we wouldn't be nothing without our consciousness. And you could say all we are is consciousness, and that there's a collective consciousness, all of humanity. We're all tapped into the collective consciousness of humanity, which entails where we're at, where we're going, but then also where we've been. Our ancestors, everything pulls into this field, and it's being like upgraded, purged, and it's being evolved and taken to its next level. Which, if you wanted a term for that to go research, there's a few terms as there normally is, but I think the best one would be to look up unity consciousness. That would be what you would probably want to look up if you wanted to learn more. It's also called 5D consciousness, fifth dimensional consciousness. You also hear it called Christ consciousness, which I don't say that one as much because then people think of like a religious context, but it's I wouldn't think of it that way. But I would say unity consciousness is probably the term that's going to get used the most. And then you might say, well, if we're heading to unity consciousness, which we're already there, I mean, you can tap into it right now. I tap into it every day when I meditate. I would love to be able to tap into it when I'm not meditating. So the state of consciousness that you're in until we get to unity consciousness, or to you individually get to unity consciousness, is called separation consciousness. So before I get into all of that and other things and just kind of explain kind of where this channel is going to go, and to sort of let you know, I guess the value that it will bring for you is essentially, I'm here to inspire, to get you inspired, whether that's about the future, whether that's about, the future of humanity, the future of what life is going to be like for you, because life's going to be amazing for us in the future. Although, to be honest, when I talk about the future, I'm really talking about the here and now. I mean, we're in 2025 we're in 2025 already for all that's good. So, now, that doesn't mean to say that I might not be on here and I might not, open up Ableton and design some sounds while I talk about things that I feel I should be talking to you guys about. I'm really talking to humanity. So if you're humanity and you're watching this, which I'm sure you are, it's the message that I feel I need to get out. And I think that what I'm called to do right now on the planet is changing. I've always been into this spiritual stuff going back over 10 years, but I don't really think that I was meant at that time, and maybe only till now recently, do I feel that perhaps I'm meant to really be talking about more of this stuff now. And I've sort of interwoven it into the SDHOs, and I always, no matter who I'm talking to in my life, I always weave in a spiritual element, a spiritual dimension into it, because that's what I've had to adopt and employ in my life to make sense of my reality. And so this can be something that you can listen to, whether you're driving, whether you're running errands, whether you're doing things around your house. You can be watching me on YouTube, while you're listening to me, or you can just be, as I mentioned, just listening to me while you're doing things. It's almost like I'm giving you a download of consciousness, a download of my consciousness that hopefully inspires you regardless of what state you're in. Maybe you're in a state of feeling a lot of anxiety, feeling very ungrounded, and so you can sort of listen to me talk, and it can sort of enter your mind, give you something to lash on to, something to hold on to while maybe you're going through a time where you feel like you need to just get out of your own head. Or maybe you like listening because it's inspiring you and making you feel better about the future, the future of, how we're going to live. And we're going to be living amazingly, because AI, robotics, automation is going to do everything. We're not going to have to, as I've said before, we're not in the future, and I mean very soon, probably by 2030, but probably sooner. In the future, you're not going to have to worry about having a job. And more than likely, I think the not having to have a job if you don't want to, I think that's going to come first. And then very likely, very soon, you're not even going to have to worry about having money, And so we'll be talking about the future, about AI and how that's going to bring that about, but also about economics. That's another area that I'm into. I'm really into cryptocurrency, and if you're really into cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, you really, if you've been in it long enough, you realize you have to know about traditional economics, macroeconomics, because that influences the world. It influences financial markets. And what I love about learning about that, and maybe that's why I've gotten into this stuff, is because the newest area of economics, which fits into all of this, and I talked about it in the last SDHO, is what is being called post-labor economics. What do the economics look like after labor? And in fact, I said, no one's going to need to have a job. I've said many times, I don't even like to call it a job. I don't like to call it that. I like to call it what it really is, and it's labor. When you really boil it down, you're laboring because resources aren't abundant. They're very scarce. But what if, essentially, we've been lied to, and the way that we've been controlled and manipulated is by trying to operate under the guise that resources are scarce, which is sort of what the majority of our economy is based around, which is scarcity economics. And we're moving into the age of abundance economics, and it flows from post-labor, when you don't need to have a job anymore, when you don't need to labor. Now, that doesn't mean, and by the way, guys, as I'm sure you know, I go on these tangents, but I always circle back to the point that I was making. So just stick with me. If you're like, oh wait, I'm losing him, he was talking here, he was talking there, that's just how my mind is. I'm a Gemini. And, I have what I guess you would call what do they call it nowadays? It's really interesting. I'm learning more about this, but neurodivergent. So many Gen Z millennials, especially Gen Z, are neural divergent, which is ADD, ADHD, various autism on the spectrum of that, and other things. And to be honest, and what I really like learning about it, because I'm I think I might have undiagnosed autism to some degree. What I like when I'm learning about a lot of this is that, it's not really a handicap as we might have thought in the earlier days. It's actually sort of it's a stepping stone into the future, you know what I mean? Almost we're wired more for the future than the way things used to be. And that gets into some interesting things about human design and the cross of planning, and now we're entering the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And if it seems right now oh my God, you're telling me too much, I literally information overload, well, this is kind of meant to be that SDHO podcast where I sort of get into all of this, because I think this is really laying down the framework for where I'm going to be going. And before I keep talking more on these themes and then sort of settle into a groove here, I just want to let you know that ideally, if you're watching this, whether you continue to watch or you don't, which is fine, because this might not be for everybody. I know it will find the people that it needs to, and I know this will also evolve over time. But my hope is that this download of consciousness that I'm giving to you, sharing with you, will help you on your spiritual journey, your spiritual ascension, help us transition and bridge from separation consciousness to unity consciousness, which is really the most exciting story you could ever hear. So if you haven't heard about it, I would definitely say to look into it. And also inspiration and feeling good about the future in terms of AI, consciousness, how we're going to live every day of our life, which we're going to live in harmony and abundance, and this is not very far off. And to rope these all together, also talking about, supporting evidence for that, looking at economics. I'm really into crypto, so we can get into that very soon. All of our wealth will be on the blockchain, all within our own wallets. So, it's cool to know about that stuff and have fun using it, and it's really fun to use. And so any event, I'm excited to really dive in here. So if you watch, I'm here to make you inspired, to get you excited. And I guess if you're not feeling those vibes, then I don't know, you can always come back to the channel, watch the old stuff. I mean, hey, I've got 100 SDHOs for you. that all involve Ableton. So if you came here and watched me, work on Ableton Live stuff, and you liked kind of hanging out with me talking about this stuff, but like designing sounds and telling you about all of that. I mean, you've got over 100 videos, and then I think like 20 like very specific Ableton tutorials. So I mean, my God, it would take you like probably at least a year to watch through all of that stuff. And then if you have questions about what's going on the planet, the future, consciousness, spirituality, all of that, this new era that we're entering into, this new paradigm, well, then you can sync up with this stuff. But I also do believe I will still come on, and while I am talking about a lot of these things, I might also, hey, let's design some music today. Let's design some sounds. Let's make some art, let's make some things. Let's talk about creativity. And that was actually one of the things I thought was going to be my first, like, SDHO, spiritual dimension, SDHO, about creativity, and how creativity is actually very much linked to this shift in consciousness. And maybe that's a good story to kind of start out talking now that I've kind of gotten the intro out of the way. And, as far as, with me and Ableton, that used to be like my creative outlet. Like when I connect to my higher self, connect to what makes me feel great, it was Ableton and it was music. And then in 2019, it started shifting to Blender, which I'm sure you guys know I talk about it a lot. It's like the best 3D computer graphics rendering software. It's open source, it's free, it's what the majority of people who are 3D CGI artists use. And boy, if any of you guys wanted to see videos on it and wanted to follow along, I could definitely make some of those. I have some of those up on the channel, but not many. And by the way, now that AI can like view your screen and even use your computer, you now have like a Blender assistant. And I looked at it like it was basically like a month and a half ago, and it was like the new Google like VO2, and that it was able to mirror or see your screen. And a guy opened up Blender and he was like asking it questions, and it was telling him how to do all of the things in Blender. And I was like, oh my God, like that would have saved me so much time learning Blender, which is, it's very, very hard to learn a 3D computer graphics software. So now having an AI assistant, but that was like a month and a half ago. So now that the big thing in AI, so yeah, we're going to talk a lot about AI. I'll keep you up to speed. Now the big thing is agentic AI, or like AI agents, which is where the AI would actually use your computer. So if you think about Ableton, you would say, open up a MIDI track, throw a sampler. I want you to look through my sample library, and I want you to put like a really nice texture that's got a lot of harmonics all across the frequency spectrum. I want you to load it into sampler, and I want you to load up like an 8-bar clip playing, default C3, and I want to hear it. And then it'll just like bloop, do it, and you'll be like, wow. And then you'll be like, I want you to sort of like time stretch this out because I want it to be like lower and like more stretched, and add some reverb, add some delay, and it will just start doing all of that. So it's crazy. So like you would still need to know what you would want it to do, but it would do it for you, so you wouldn't have to get lost in the weeds. And Ableton Live 12, I think, has been out for a year, maybe longer. I always lose track of it. I haven't gotten Ableton Live 12 because I don't use it. But like, as I've been saying on here every so often, like the next Ableton Live, which would be Ableton Live 13, they're going to have AI. I mean, maybe they don't even need to have AI, because like our computers the AI would just interact with whatever Ableton that we would have. But they really should, because one of the other big DAWs, digital audio workstations that make music, they'll probably have AI tools. And if people like to use, especially newer people that are wanting to get their ideas out, would end up using those tools, so Ableton would have to adjust. But I know people are going to be upset when they hear about a lot of that stuff. But like, it does take a lot of time to learn these programs from scratch. Whether you're learning Ableton from scratch, it's going to take a while to get the nuances, to know how to do all the things you want to do. And when I learned Ableton in 2013, I had never ever used a DAW before, right? So not only was I learning how to use Ableton, but I was learning like what you would even do in a music software program, in a digital audio workstation, as they call it, as a DAW. And I'm just repeating that, and I'm saying all that stuff for people who maybe aren't so familiar. Same thing with Blender. Blender would take you a long time to learn. And if you haven't learned, and if you haven't ever used a 3D computer graphics software before, it will take a while. Now, I'm so happy that AI didn't exist then, and that I had to like learn through trial and error, and then I'd watch a bunch of tutorials on YouTube, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I would do that, I would that. I remember one of my favorite Ableton Live tutorials was Tom Kazum. I don't know if he makes tutorials anymore, but I'm pretty sure all of his videos are still up on his YouTube channel, and that was really great content to watch. And I remember learning Ableton, and I would watch him, and he would be like so quick, and I was like, you mean you could learn this very like state-of-the-art, robust, super complex system, but you could do it so quick, like you're not even thinking. And why am I mentioning all of this? It's because AI is not to be feared. It can help you get up to speed and get the results that you need. Now, what might be the pros and cons to that? Well, you might say, well, first of all, I don't even have a need to use an Ableton Live, a Pro Tools, a Fruity Loops, whatever any other DAWs are. I wouldn't use any of them but Ableton. You're like, I could use like Sdho, which is like an AI. I think there's a Riff Fusion, is like a music AI, and that's good, right? If you need music, because think about it, how many people, that are making any sort of social media content, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's TikToks, anything, even if you're someone who makes like video productions for people, you always need music. And, you can subscribe to a some sort of platform that has like music that you can use in your productions, and that might be good. But now with AI, you can say, oh, I want like a moody tone that builds anticipation, and I want it to be this long and in this key, and it'll give it to you. And then if it's great, you can use it. If it's not great, well, hell, if you know how to use Ableton, you can throw it into a sampler, manipulate it, do all kinds of things. Or whatever AI music program you use, you can then prompt it and say, okay, I want you to change this. That was a little bit too dark and discordant. I want it to be brighter. And so who would be doing that? Well, it would be the person who needs specific music. If you're making a video production and you need to post it to your channel because you want to put out a video every 2 days, or you are, you just need a very specific piece of music for a very specific point in some sort of production you're putting out, or you need something for your like TikTok or your YouTube video, you don't want to be working in Ableton to make that thing over the course of 2 months. You need it now and you need it quick. So AI really helps, on the creative side when you know what you want, right? So using Blender, I love it because I create every aspect of everything on my own. But if I knew that I needed, okay, insert a plane, make it about 60 meters in diameter, add a principled BSDF shader, put a bump node on there with a noise texture. I want a really like juicy, watery look, so maybe add a little bit of metallicness to the shader. And then I want to have a gradient texture on the world shader, and I want it to be like purple on top, black on the bottom, on like the lower horizon, and then bloop, it's right there. And if it's not completely right, I'll then like tweak the gradient, and I'll tweak like the noise texture settings, and so it speeds things up. And so, but what would be, I don't even want to say a con, pros and cons. What would be a con? Well, it wouldn't be a con, but why would you not maybe want to do that? Well, you might not want to do that if you say, listen, I'm completely engaging in, making this video, or I'm completely engaged. I want to be completely engaged in working on Ableton from everything from the ground up, doing everything in the digital art realm from, the bottom up. I want to do everything because it's more about the creative experience. It's more about the creative enjoyment. I mean, I think we all know, even if you don't do any of the creative stuff I do, even if it's like you like to knit, or you like to do, crochet, or you like to garden, or you like to do anything, you like to make sand designs in sand, like you're engaging with, whenever you do any sort of creative task, you're feeling great because you're connecting to your higher self. You're connecting to a higher dimensional spiritual aspect of yourself. And when that happens, you feel great. So it's not like, well, I don't need to use AI to make art and to make music and to make blah, 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 fill in the blank, because, I don't need, content for whatever I'm doing right away. I want to enjoy in the creative dance, the creative element. Then you don't have to. But if you're someone who needs a very specific piece of music for a specific part of something you're creating, you're going to want to create it as efficiently and simply and as time effective as possible, especially if you're on some sort of a deadline. So that's something I felt I needed to share. I have no idea how long I've been going for, but I wanted to get on. I thought it would be very interesting to just record vocals. I've got Ableton recording my vocals because I don't need Ableton for anything else. I don't have to record my screen, which is nice because I was getting all those audio dropouts. I love it because the new audio interface that I got a few months ago, it's not, it's bus powered, which if you guys know what that means, which you probably do, it means that I don't have to have it plugged into a wall to feed it power. So I don't even have to sit here to make these videos. I didn't really even need to do that before. So I can experiment with recording in different areas, which is cool. And I think I'm supposed to be talking about different things now. And that also brings me back to something about creativity that I think I shared the last video. Kind of all this really ties in together. It's basically explaining the future, which is going to be very amazing. And I need a sip of water, 1 second. And so, on that subject of creativity, I hadn't used Blender in a while to make 3D stuff. I was doing more digital art kind of things, like compositing different renders I've made and, masking and color blending them, things that you would do in Photoshop or Adobe After Effects. But I do all of that in the program that I make videos with, Final Cut Pro, because I'm on a Mac. And it allows you to do all the things you would need to do. Obviously, it's not going to be as robust as a Photoshop or an After Effects, but that's where I take my renders from Blender, and then I can adjust the colors, the contrast levels. I can then do color blending, where I can mash multiple images, multiple renders of mine together to create unusual things I could not do, various masking tools. You can mask out certain areas, all the things that you would very need to do, I can, do in there. And so when I got back to using Blender, it had been a few weeks. And that's the thing I love the most, And I wanted to build, architecture, temples and alien landscapes. And I sat down at the on the blank canvas, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know what to do. I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'll just start making a temple. And I started making it, and I'm like, I don't feel excited. I don't feel that creative impulse. Does that mean that not only have I passed by Ableton, but now I've passed by the interest of, making these 3D virtual environments? Where's the creativity? I don't know what to do. I want that great, excited, creative feeling. And then I started letting go. And again, this is tying it into the new way I think about creativity. Maybe you guys are already there, but I thought this would be a good story to share. Oh wow, I wonder if the audio just got out there. It doesn't matter, it's still recording, but I'm like, man, this setup is weird. I don't know. But anyways, what was I saying? But I noticed my mind was trying to control. It was trying to search. It was trying to use my mental energy to say, where do I need to go? What do I need to do to feel that thing that I love, that connection with my higher self, with creativity? Where is it? I thought I was the guy that was supposed to be making these energy temples and Blender and supposed to be making these things, but my creativity isn't there. Where is it? And it was my mind. And I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm not doing this anymore. This was my thing, right? And then slowly I started getting out of my mind, which we were talking about separation consciousness earlier. Separation consciousness is how society has been living for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Separation consciousness. And separation consciousness is defined by our mental activity, our ego, which is our thinking mind, mental activity, trying to solve things from the mind. But unity consciousness is when we move from separation consciousness, which is of the mind, to unity consciousness, which is the heart space. It's a feeling, whereas this is more of a thinking. This is more of a feeling. And that can guide you and direct you, and it feels good. And so as I was getting tense, I was in my mind, oh no, what am I supposed to do? I'm not excited. This temple thing looks boring. Aren't I supposed to be excited? I all of a sudden started drawing attention away from my mind because I started just playing. I think I opened up a brand new project and I said, I want to make a landscape. I was okay, I was moving. I was like, ooh, I want to do this, and then this. And it just started, it's like I started going on a journey. It's like I was withdrawing consciousness from my mind, and I was in the present moment, in the heart space. And it was almost as if I saw myself, almost my imagination was giving me little little ideas. And the ideas felt kind of good. Sometimes I would get an idea and I'd be like, well, that's dumb. And I was like, wait, no. I've experienced this before. Maybe go do it. And then I would go and I would, ooh, okay, this is interesting. And then another thing. And now all of a sudden I'm being taken on a journey and it feels good. I'm not even thinking. I'm not worrying about, oh, you're the guy that makes this, or you're the guy that does this, or this is what you need to do to feel good and creatively inspired. And so I started thinking, well, what if this unity consciousness that we're moving into, it's not just a state of being, a state of consciousness, a state of the evolution, but it's also tied to creativity or true creativity. If you say, And I think this is a roadblock I fell into with my work with creating music, is I had an idea of what I thought I was supposed to be. And boy, this really relates to everyday life and spirituality. I had this idea of what I thought I was supposed to be. But then if you allow life and allow things to happen without trying to label things or say, this is what I need to do, you get out of the judgment space, you get out of the mind. Apparently your true destiny and your true happiness comes from within you. And I noticed it was such a great session because it started off, I was nervous, I was anxiety prone, I was caught in my head. Oh no, is this over? Am I no longer supposed to be doing this? This was the thing that was supposed to be my rock and my anchor in my life, this 3D virtual worlds that I create. And then as soon as I started dropping into the creative flow, I was like, I don't even have to worry. I can sit down at Ableton, sit down on Blender, sit down to make digital art and just allow things to flow and have no expectations. And I heard this quote once, and it was like, the bad news is that you can't control anything. But the good news is that you can't control anything. So hopefully that resonates. And so it was so unique that I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to hold these labels and these concepts in my mind, that I could just sit down with the intention to create and allow my higher self to allow true creativity to flow through and to feel good, and to not have to put too much thought and intensity on it, too much planning. You know, the mind is all about planning. It's all about I just heard a sound. I'm like, what the hell is that? It's getting kind of tiresome to talk. So I think we're about to wrap up, but we're going to be, hopefully you felt inspired. Hopefully that gave you ideas. I've said a lot when I'm working on Ableton that I'm trying to give you ideas. I feel like I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of imagination to share, a lot of inspiration to share. I'd like to think that I can see into the future. So we're going to be talking a lot about consciousness. We're going to be talking a lot about the shift from separation consciousness to unity consciousness. We're going to be talking a lot about creativity. We're going to be talking a lot about AI in the future and post-labor economics, talking about this new age of abundance, why you should be excited, and why everything is going to be amazing. And you might see on the surface things are crumbling, but that's because the old system is going away, and this new system is, this new paradigm is what we're moving into. But we're not even just moving into it, we're in it right now. And so be excited. Hopefully you'll stick on the journey with me. We'll still do Ableton, and we'll still do art stuff, probably more art stuff, to be honest. And I just hope to sit down, to inspire, to share what I'm thinking about. Whenever I go, ooh, I should get on and talk about that, I'm just going to try to go do it. And I don't know, maybe I'll turn this into a different podcast. Maybe I'll start a different channel that's more in this stuff. Maybe I'll keep doing it. The mind, see, everything I just said, the mind was kind of kiboshing me because I wanted to figure out the details. I wanted to figure out the deets. And then I was getting anxiety, and I was I don't want to do it. So living in the heart, it's when you feel called and inspired, you just do it. You just move, because I'm not trying to make a thing for me. I'm trying to make a thing for you, but not just for you, for humanity. And I heard this really good quote that was it's Victor Wooten is one of the best bass guitarists to ever have lived. And I always loved watching him play bass because he was great at bass, but he would teach, and he had this very interesting way to play. And he always had this spiritual element to everything he was saying. And he has this quote where I don't even know if it's a quote, meaning he said it, but like he was talking about his mom, I think, and she was like, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he was like, oh, I want to be like the best at playing the bass guitar. And I'm paraphrasing this, I can't remember. I haven't watched it in like many years, but she was like, like, does the world need like another bass guitarist? Like there's a lot of people playing the bass guitar. There's a lot of people doing this, doing that. She's like, what the world needs is a lot of like inspiring people. And so I'm not trying to toot my own horn and say, oh, I'm very inspiring, although I feel like that's what I'm here to be. And I'm either going to be very inspiring in all of these ways, in which case people will want to watch, and if not, then people will go search for something else, So I hope you guys dug this. Thanks for hanging out. I think I made SDHO number 1, I think exactly like 3 years ago. So I'm completing a 3-year cycle. And I'm pretty excited. I'm very excited, and I hope you guys are excited, not just for the SDHO or whatever it turns into, but excited because the true life, the true new human, new earth, unity consciousness, what we've, I guess, been working for over reincarnation on this planet to get to this point where we would make this major quantum leap in consciousness, a shift to the next octave of consciousness, going beyond the mind into this unity consciousness, 5D consciousness. It's very exciting, and we'll be able to just truly live a life where we're in joy and bliss and freedom. And you're seeing right now the death of the old paradigm and the birth of the new paradigm, the new earth. And I'm excited. Let's be excited to be on this journey together.